Hello, everyone. Welcome to I Do Believe. I'm happy and excited to have Jeremy and Hadi with us today. How are you guys?
Good, doing good.
You ready for the episode?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Nagy, for being here. Dr.
Thank
Nagy
you.
Eskandar is a medical doctor and he's the fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons of England, and he practiced surgery for 25 years. Welcome, doctor.
Thank you. I'm
We're-
delighted to be here.
We're happy to have you, and we've been on this, how can I say, beautifully complicated journey.
That's right.
We've talked about biology, we've talked about geology, and now we're gonna go into astronomy.
Exactly. Yes. So we remember on the screen here the three cycles of evolution: biological evolution, and geological evolution, and cosmological, or the Big Bang theory, really in that section. And you remember the millions of years started in geology by uniformitarian, thinking that the rate of change that we notice nowadays, they assume it happened in the past, and they neglect the Noah's flood, and we discussed that in detail. So let us come to the Big Bang, and that's the big name really on the screen. And I'll just give a background. For a long time, they believed that the universe is static, it's not expanding, till Edwin Hubble came in with his great telescope, and he confirmed that the universe is expanding. And that was in 1929, 1931, during this period. From this idea of expansion, they started to think of the Big Bang. The Big Bang is not a big sort of explosion. It's not like that at all. It is an expansion. So they started with something called singularity, and then the energy and matter expanded and formed the universe that we know nowadays. So let me just take you through the stages of what they think in the Big Bang. We start here with something called nothing, or cosmic egg, which is the matter and energy concentrated in a very small point. And actually, when matter and energy are concentrated and condensed, the laws of physics will not act. So to start the Big Bang, you need a miracle. And we'll come to some quotations to talk about that. Then they feel that about 13.8 billion years ago, this small little spot of singularity started to expand and form helium and hydrogen gases, clouds. Hydrogen and helium, hydrogen is H2, helium is H4. And this started to form the stars, the galaxies, really, and supernova. And then the sun started to appear about 5 billion years ago. Of course, all these figures are revised all the time. This is not an accurate measurement. It's not like measuring this table and say this is 2-3 meters. It's not like that at all. So people should understand that these figures are approximate and they keep revising them. When they started with the idea of the Big Bang, they said it's 15 billion. A billion is 1,000 million. 15 billion to 20. And then they tried to refine it to about 13.8, and some people debating 13.7, and other groups saying 13.2. So we're talking about millions of years here, 600 million difference between all these figures. So we should be very careful when we understand this idea of the timing of the Big Bang.
So, doctor, these are again assumptions, because if they're changing, why are they changing?
Yeah, depending on Hubble constant, there is an equation, and the Hubble constants keep changing to adjust the distances that they think they are measuring. So there are a lot of calculations and assumptions. Nobody measured that accurately like we measure this table. It is based on assumptions and mathematical calculations based on the assumption. So if the assumption have a problem, the mathematical calculation will bring us different number. We are not doubting the mathematics, by the way. The mathematics are right, but the problem is the basic assumption. So let us see this Steven Weinberg, and he's saying it is also a bit disturbing that all these estimates of the ages and compositions of the stars rest on elaborate calculations. So it is a calculations of what is going on inside them. We've never been inside them. But all that we do observe is the light emitted from their surfaces. So we are measuring the light emitted from the reaction of these gases together, and we're measuring the light emission, and from the light we make these calculations. So there could be many other factors contributing and we are not aware of them. So that's why it keeps changing. Let us go back to the idea of the Big Bang and see how the cosmology affects the biology and the understanding. So in the upper part of the screen here, we see the Big Bang at the beginning. And as I said, we don't know how it started, but they believe it started there. And then the different galaxies were formed. That's the first Big Bang or the start. The Big Bang, as I said, is expansion. It's not an explosion. And they believe that the expansion happened very quickly at the beginning and then slowed down. So the Big Bang, they believe 13.8 at the moment, billion years. And then the supernova and the other galaxies, about 10 to 12 billion years. And then the sun, they believe it is 5 billion years. The Earth, they believe it is about 4.5 or 4.6, but let us say 4.5 billion years ago. And then they believe the water started to condense on Earth and to appear on Earth about 3.8 billion years. And they believe from the water, life started. That's one theory of the start of life, because we discussed before, when Richard Dawkins was asked how life started, he said, it started on another planet by Darwinian evolution and transported to us. And we discussed that and we said, imagine a microscopic cell rotating in the wide universe with all these X-rays that can kill it. And this cell has to come through the layers of the atmosphere, very, very cold at the top of the atmosphere. They have to penetrate all the layers of atmosphere, implant the Earth, and implant all the life that we know. There is major scientific problem with that. Yes.
Doctor, how is it believed that there is a living cell to begin with?
Exactly, that's a problem, because life comes from life. So even if I give you all the components of a cell, the chemical components of the cell, you won't be able to form a cell, because that's called biogenesis. Biogenesis meaning life comes from life. So in order to be an atheist, you have to believe in something called abiogenesis. That means life can come from no life. That needs a big leap of faith, actually. And I mentioned before, there is a lovely book called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in the same light, how is it believed that there is material to begin the expansion in the first place?
Nobody knows. That's again, from where the energy came for the singularity and where the matter come from, we don't know. And you need a miracle to start the Big Bang. So these are the problems. Do you know, Hadi, I was in South America and I was attending a lecture from a big astrophysicist, and he explained the Big Bang and so I started to highlight problems like this. So another physicist said to me, yes, we know there are problems, but what's the alternative? To believe in a creator? I said, yes. So that is the problem, really. It's not the science at all, as we will discuss, and we'll discover that as we go along, discussing all the cosmology. And we'll simplify it and make it accessible to all of us. But we have to understand the basics and discuss the assumptions. So they believe life started in the water, and then the reptiles came out. The first is amphibians, who can live in the water and on the solid ground. And then from the amphibian, the reptiles came, and dinosaurs and all of that, as you can see here on the screen. And the dinosaurs started to fly. And we have discussed that in evolution, and we found that is really having a big leap of faith to move from a structure like dinosaur with the breathing and the bones. And I really would love that the people who are watching us will go back to these episodes and see what we have discussed at the time. Then the animals came in on Earth, the four-legged animals, and then they started to stand, and the common ancestor of the apes and man, and then this is the present man, Homo sapiens, as they know it.
So it just kind of sounds like a lot of change is happening. Do they have any patterns or theories of these patterns of why these changes happened? I know that we've probably discussed Darwin and his idea of, survival of the fittest, but it just kind of seems like there's numbers put on here like this happened billions of years ago, and then a couple billion. Like, do they have any reason why we would start going from crawling to standing, or why we would go from on Earth to in the air?
Actually, there are hypotheses all the time. And the fossil record doesn't confirm that, because if you have these changes, you must have millions of intermediates. There are none of them. And we discussed that when we discussed geology. And the geology at Darwin's time, he said that geology doesn't support his theory of evolution because there are no intermediates. And he said that's because we haven't studied geology enough. Let us dig more and find more fossils, we will find the intermediates. After about 200 years from Darwin's book of Origin of Man and Origin of Species and Descent of Man, we still don't have the intermediates. So it's all theories and hypotheses, actually, rather than theory. Theory is higher than the hypothesis. And there is no mechanism to add information. Yeah.
When you're talking about the word theory, can you maybe discuss how theory is higher than a hypothesis and how something gets to theory and what kind of weight theory kind of carries? Because we've talked about theory evolution, the evolution theory, and now we're talking about Big Bang, and a lot of people have connected Big Bang theory.
Yes.
What does that really mean?
Right. Hypothesis is an idea, an assumption. You start by, and then you do some practical tests to prove it. And then if you can prove it in the lab or by history or by other means, it goes from hypothesis to a theory. And when the theory is tested, it becomes fact. So this is the progression of the science of hypothesis, theory, and fact. And you know, Jeremy, some people say, oh, Darwin is just a theory. You don't need to worry about it. No, we should worry about it because the gravity is a theory. And it's true. So the word theory carries lots of weight, massive amount of weight. So we have to discuss the theory, and we did in the program in many episodes. And now we're discussing another theory, Big Bang. And I'll show you later on, there's lots of scientists who are not Christians, are opposing the Big Bang because there are major problems with the Big Bang. But that's the only available theory at the moment.
Well, thank you guys. We'll take a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like a copy of this episode, please call 714-709-4300 or email us at info@alkarmatv.com. You can also visit our website at www.alkarmatv.com. Also, you can write to P.O. Box 3610, Seal Beach, California 90740.
Welcome back to What Do You Believe? And we were talking in a break very quickly, and Hadi had that question. Like, if you want to just ask that question, and then we can take it very quickly.
I was just wondering, why is gravity still a theory, or part of it is, whereas a law is derived from gravity?
Yes, because Isaac Newton found the laws of gravity, right? But what is gravity and why it is there and how the bodies attract to each other and rotate and cause this gravitational force? That's why it is the theory. But we have from the theory laws that we all agree about and we all can practice and we all can see in the lab or prove it in the lab, right?
Let's move back to astronomy.
Exactly, right. So on the screen here, we see this diagram that I was explaining. So on Earth here, this is the present time. That's we are all here in the present. And we're looking back, trying to find how the universe, how the cosmos was formed. And we followed the idea of the Big Bang over 13.8 billion years as they believe now. We have another construction of the past from somebody who created the past. And according to the Christian faith, it's God. And he wrote and explained to us how he created the world. So let us come to the second part of the bottom part of the screen here. And we start with creation. Creation is a supernatural act of God. It is not the laws of physics that created. Matter did not create itself. God created matter and created life. And that's the start in a supernatural action of God during the week of creation, the 6 days of creation and the day of rest. And that's very important and fundamental to our Christian belief. In the beginning, God created. That is really essential verse in our understanding of God and the Bible. And you know that the hymn in heaven, according to the book of Revelation, the angels are praising God because you have created all things, and by your will, they are created. They give praise and honor and glory to God because of their creation. If we hear as humans say, he never created, we just evolved from chemical reactions. What a shame. Really, we are, what can I say? I don't find the words and don't like to find them really. Because God is a creator. We have to honor him as a creator. The heavens declare the glory of God. That's just something we should appreciate and enjoy. Yeah.
So in the Bible, it's said that there's 6 days of creation.
Yes.
And I've always wondered, is that metaphorical? Because before the sun was created, there is no real way to tell a day.
Right. That's a very interesting question. Let me explain what is the definition of a day. The day is determined by rotation of the earth around its axis. That's what makes a day. In the beginning, in day one, God created the light. And light is photons and wave, right? The sun is the source of light, but the sun is helium and hydrogen. But as they infuse together, the two hydrogens come together, make helium, energy called light comes out, and that's what we enjoy. It gives us light and heat, right? So the light is different from the source of light. So in the beginning, in day one, God created the heaven and earth and created light. And the earth rotates around itself. So part will be, and there was darkness on the globe of the earth. So part of the earth will be exposed to light and the other part exposed to darkness. That's why there's evening and morning in the first 3 days. On the fourth day, when God created the sun and the moon, that is to control and to be signs for months and years. You won't have a year before the sun, because the definition of a year is rotation of the earth around the sun. That makes a year. So you won't have a year in the first 3 days. You won't have a month in the first 3 days, because the moon rotates around the earth to make the lunar month, right? So you won't have a month or a year before day 4, but you can have a day before day 4. Okay, good. Back again. We have here the creation, and we spend lots of time in our program really talking about creation, the importance of creation and the perfect creation and the fall of mankind and the entrance of death and decay. This is really essential to understand. Then we have God created Adam and Eve, perfect, without sin, and they are at the top of this creation and have dominion, and we talked about the dominion of man, and Adam was able to name the animals, and that's a big job to have dominion over them. And Adam and Eve practiced their freedom of choice and disobeyed God. But the punishment was very clear. The day you eat from the tree of good and evil, dying you shall die. And there was 2 types of death: spiritual death, separation from God, and physical death that happened to Adam and Eve, and it happened to all of us. But the Lord has provided a way of salvation by offering a sacrifice covering them, and they learned how to approach God by offering sacrifice, shedding the blood, because without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin. And the sin of man increased about 1600 years from the event of creation, and we have the flood, and we discussed the events of the flood and the geology of the flood. But the Lord provided a way of salvation, which is the ark. And the ark was strong enough and big enough for people to repent, but they didn't. So it's not God's fault. The flood is harsh, but that's the judgment. But there was mercy as well. But people didn't use the mercy. So it's not God's fault, really. Then after the flood ended, after 371 days, the 8 people on the ark came out with all the animals, and that means the kinds. The animals and birds came out, and God blessed them and asked them to multiply and increase. But because there is sin still in the world, some animals were extinct. And then we have the Tower of Babel, because all the people wanted to come together in one place called Shinar, and they want to build a city and a tower. And by building the tower, they want to worship idols on top. And the Lord said in the covenant with Noah and his descendant, he was not going to flood the universe again with a universal flood. So God divided their languages, and as a result, groups of people went to different parts of the world. And that's where we have the genetic drift of different shapes and styles and things like that, all coming from one pool, Adam and Eve. So there are two different histories together, altogether, really, and you can't mix them. Really, they are completely different. The order is different, the timing is different, the mechanism of creation is different, and the beginning is different. One begins with God, the creator, according to the Bible. The other brings by nothing. In the beginning, there was nothing, and nothing had exploded or expanded. And these are the two choices before us. And we really invite our dear friends who are watching us to think about these issues. And we love to answer your questions and communicate with you, because this is a very important subject. These are the basis of what we believe. And what we believe affects how we behave, really. Right. So let us see this little video.
Our solar system has a marvelous assortment of planets and other objects that orbit the sun with clockwork precision. Mercury, the closest planet to the sun, is a cratered, barren world with temperatures up to 800 degrees Fahrenheit on its sunlit side. The second planet is Venus. The thick, clouded atmosphere creates a surface temperature of 900 degrees Fahrenheit, even hotter than Mercury. Next is the Earth, so well designed for life. Mars, about half the size of Earth, has mountains, valleys, and canyons, but no liquid water on its surface. Mars has 2 small moons, each only a few miles across. Farther out are the gas giants. Made of hydrogen and helium, they have no solid surface. Jupiter, the largest of all the planets, is 11 times the diameter of the Earth and has more than 60 moons. The Great Red Spot is an enormous hurricane, over twice the size of Earth. Saturn's amazing rings are made up of billions of moonlets orbiting Saturn's equator. Next are Uranus and its twin Neptune. These planets have strong magnetic fields. Given how rapidly magnetic fields decay, a biblical age of thousands of years makes sense. Also, in our solar system are comets, small chunks of ice and dirt that orbit in elliptical paths, losing material every time they pass near the sun. Comets can't last millions of years. Young comets make sense if the creation is only thousands of years old. The beauty of these worlds, the precision of their paths, and their variety point to the wisdom and glory of their Creator.
I think this is a wonderful presentation, really, of only the solar system. And this is part of another big galaxy. And there are hundreds of millions of galaxies all around. But look how this is precise, and the orbits are right orbits, nothing of them clashing. This cannot happen by chance, because the chance will not allow them to be perfectly arranged that way. And you know that the evolutionists, they believe in cosmic evolution, they come with a very interesting idea. They say there is multiverses, as if there is a machine producing millions of different verses, and one of them by chance will be accurately tuned, and that's the one we are living on. This is really far-fetched idea, really. It needs massive faith to believe in that. And this is great scientists, but they don't want to put God into the equation. Remember, in the beginning of our series, David, we mentioned this scientist who said, even if all the evidence points to a creator, a designer, we are not going to allow a divine foot in the laboratory. So it's a decision of mind. It is not the science. It is their heart and their mind decided not to acknowledge God as the creator.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you guys for being here. Richard Feynman said, "A scientist is never certain. We absolutely must leave room for doubt, or there is no progress and there is no learning." So let's leave room for doubt. Let's ask ourselves. Ask yourself, what do you believe? Thank you for watching.